The following is a special presentation of KNX News 97.1 FM.
From the Odyssey Soundspace on the Miracle Mile, this is Smash and Grab, Stealing the Season.
A KNX News Town Hall.
Here are Mike Simpson and Charles Feldman.
So the numbers, they don't lie. Property crimes like retail theft, they are on a steady rise. But the debate over what's behind it, how to stop it, it gets complicated, and there are a lot of competing voices.
The law and order perspective, lock up more low-level criminals. The reformers' perspective, bring down the numbers without throwing more people in prison. The retailers, stop the stealing by any means necessary. And even the media, the challenge of balancing sensational stories of flash mobs and unsuspecting shoppers with the bigger picture. So our goal is to get to the root of what really is a very complex problem.
We're going to start with a couple people for whom this is very real. We stopped by Luxury Jewels at Beverly Hills. They were hit by smash and grab robbers last year. It cost them millions.
Set the scene for us. You're in your office in the back.
I'm in my office in the back looking at some diamonds, and all of a sudden I hear what sounded like gunshots.
I just heard banging, like a little bit of tapping. And I thought nothing of it because there's construction everywhere. And then I look up and this guy's trying to get in the door with a pipe. And I'm like, okay, you're not gonna get in. He leaves, and then two guys come back with a sledgehammer, and I just stood in shock.
So once what I thought was gunshots stopped, I grabbed my gun, I came, checked on my employees, and while I was walking towards what was going on, they were grabbing stuff, and as soon as they see me with my gun, they started hightailing around the corner.
And I started yelling at Peter to shoot him, and I don't know if it was the right thing to say at the time, but I was more upset, because it's like, how are they doing this to us?
How long did it take him to get through the old window there? I mean, because they had the sledge with them, right?
Literally, I think it was 13 or 15 hits, like 6 people hitting him.
What was going through your mind watching this unfold?
I couldn't believe what was. I was in shock. You can't believe what's going on. Beverly Hills, Tuesday, 1:30 in the afternoon. It was like, it was a nightmare.
What did they actually make off with? Do you know? You must.
Yeah, quite a bit, in the millions.
You were telling me before we started this that there were apparently 6 people involved. What happened to the 6?
From what I understand, they caught 4 out of the 6. So they're up on federal charges, possibly 15 to 25 years each.
Did you get any of it back, or how hard is it?
Most likely what they do, they're going to melt the platinum and take out the diamonds and break it up.
That must hurt you
Yes,
to
it
be
does.
in the business.
It does. It's their work.
It's been around that long. It's
Yeah.
100 years old. Now it's just
Yeah.
melted.
Yeah.
So what happens after something like this happens? Obviously you're dealing with the police, but there are insurance issues and all that. What kind of a mess is it afterwards?
Complete mess. We were shut down for a couple months.
Why a couple of months?
Well, then the window took a while to get, because we had to get our insurance, wanted us to get even more of a special window, which we didn't have. We had to do paperwork for insurance. The floors were messed up. The frame was messed up. It's tough.
Is there a day that goes by where you don't think about this?
No, I think about it all the time.
All the time.
Because I don't want to be, attacked. I don't want to be a victim of something, because they're watching you. I think they're always watching.
Our thanks to Peter Sedgy and Cindy Delegara at Luxury Jewels of Beverly Hills for letting us talk to them about what clearly for them was a very awful experience.
Tonight we're going to talk with some people who have very tough jobs trying to solve this problem. Todd Spitzer's with us, District Attorney for Orange County. Lieutenant Sergio Perez, Coordinator of the California Highway Patrol's Southern Division, the Retail Theft Task Force. Tanish Hollins is Executive Director of the nonprofit advocacy group Californians for Safety and Justice. Mark Bayart, prosecutor in the LA County DA's office, the retail theft investigations, and Charis Kubrin, criminologist and researcher at UC Irvine, the School of Social Ecology.
Charis, I'm going to start with you as the sort of resident criminologist. How bad of a problem is this? And when I say problem, the so-called smash and grab, and we can sort of drill down later if you want to other forms of theft, because there are certainly many. But the whole smash and grab phenomenon, if it is that, how bad of a problem is it?
Right. So,
Yes, it's on.
yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
So, sorry. First of all, thank you for having this panel and for inviting me to be a part of this really important discussion. And I'm glad we're starting with the data and some of the facts. This is a bit challenging because we do not have good data on smash and grabs. In fact, we don't have really any systematic data on smash and grabs. Smash and grab is a classification, it's not a crime type. And so while we know about shoplifting, commercial burglary, commercial robbery, organized retail theft of the kind you're talking about, we do not have systematic data, and we've mostly have to rely on what retail establishments claim are happening in terms of the amount. So the answer is we don't really know, and that's part of the challenge.
And have we seen some evidence of that over the last few months where we've had at least one of the big retail lobbying groups revise their numbers? They said about half of the shrink, what they lose was this kind of retail theft. And they said, well, actually, no. And then there's the Walgreens story, right? The CEO who came out and said, I think we maybe cried a little too much, was the quote, about how much was leaving the stores through this, and we had to close these stores, but actually those stores were going to be closing anyways. So it's a kind of a perspective we have to take before we start in on some of this.
Right, exactly. So I think now what's happening is we're starting to realize the numbers are a bit all over the place, and we need to step back and take a deep breath and figure out what is actually going on. We have to challenge some of the claims that are being made by the retail establishments, because clearly they're having to walk back on some of those claims. And I think the San Francisco Chronicle did a great investigation in this. There was a piece in the New York Times today, an op-ed about these numbers and concerns. So I'm glad that that's starting to get a bit of attention.
But why do they have to walk it back? Is it because of they don't have good control over their inventory? Is it because of incompetence at a corporate level? What is it that that is happening that requires them to walk back these numbers anyway?
Well, the numbers are in question, quite frankly.
It's the cause.
Well, we can then get to the cause too, but before we even get to the cause, in terms of organized retail theft, smash and grabs, we do not have actual official data on a systematic basis to answer fundamental questions about how common this is. Now, you watch social media, you watch the news, and one particular picture is painted about how systematic and widespread it is. That, in conjunction with claims about the retail establishment, lead folks to be very, very concerned. And this is serious stuff. We should take it seriously. Nobody wants these organized retail theft rings doing what they're doing. But we also need to have a better understanding of how often this is happening. And I think it's been a bit overstated.
Is this really a numbers game, though? I mean, listen to your interview. Those individuals were not only traumatized by the event, but the financial impact on their business, what it did to their livelihood, the fear it instilled with them on a daily basis. I mean, let's be real. This whole idea about retailers walking back numbers, honestly, I don't really care. Because every single time an individual goes into a business and creates this level of havoc, they need to be prosecuted. There's another subtle point that came in your interview that I don't know was really picked up on. They said the FBI and the U.S. Department of Justice is prosecuting this. This is Beverly Hills, California. This is not the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office prosecuting this or prosecuting it under California law. And there's reasons they can't prosecute it or choose not to prosecute it under California law.
That's Todd Spitzer for those of you on the radio and the app right now.
Right. Thank you. You
can't see him.
But hold on. But wait. Hold on for a second. You raised the question, do numbers matter? Why do numbers matter? And the numbers do matter in the sense that the public has a heightened sense of fear. Now, understandably, if you happen to be a victim, you have good reason to be afraid. But there's a difference between rational fear and irrational fear. And there's a difference between whether the numbers, which Shara says don't really exist, indicate that this is a pervasive problem that people should be hyper concerned about. Is that right?
Yeah, and I would also add that you can't really get a handle on how to solve a problem until you know what the extent of the problem is. These are the numbers, how widespread it is, and all of that additional information, which is not just noise, but a precursor to solving a problem, in my opinion.
Lieutenant Perez, you looked like you were about to say something or wanted to. Oh, Mark, I'm sorry, you did.
So cases should
Use
go
your
to
mic.
highest and best value for prosecution at all times. Having said that, often cases go in our jurisdiction of LA County, one of the largest, most populous counties in the nation, often go to the feds because the feds have already been tracking and surveilling that crew or that criminal outfit. Now, I don't know if that's the case here, but it sounds like this was a very sophisticated robbery, and that could explain why it went to the feds and not to our office.
But Mark, I get LAPD, who comes to me all the time as the District Attorney of Orange County and wants me to prosecute the case, not George Gascon. So not you, Mark. You've been a career prosecutor for 25 years. This is not about you. But the fact of the matter is, in jurisdictions like San Francisco, Alameda County, Los Angeles, where the elected district attorney has made it very, very clear that they have a different approach to prosecution than what I believe is responsive to the public and to these individual victims, we have a severe problem in California. So my point being, and my opening was going to be, it's about setting a tone and an expectation in your community about what you expect people and how they are going to behave. And my argument is Orange County is the safest large county in California. You know that, Mark. Los Angeles is the highest now robbery capital of the world in terms of smash and grabs. LA stands out amongst itself. And something here must change.
Mark, do we need to change the tone in LA County?
Okay.
Are the Orange County people looking at LA County going, oh, they're getting all these smash and grabs?
Okay, first of all, LA County, if it were a state, by population, we would be the 8th largest in the United States. We are a very large county. I mean, ports, banking, finance, entertainment, we are a capital of the world. Now, having said that, whenever we have a crisis in law enforcement, such as organized retail theft, we go to the same tool every single time. And in that particular case, that's a task force where we work with other offices that prosecute law enforcement agencies, such as Lieutenant Perez's California Highway Patrol, which the governor graciously gave us 30 detectives and officers. We work with LAPD, Pasadena PD, Beverly Hills, Glendale. We share information with the Sheriff's Department in real time. Since the task force has started, we filed in our office over 30 cases, 64 of them in particularly were adult felony cases. We filed robberies. We just received on one robbery 5 years, on another 10 years. We're aggressively pursuing organized retail theft in all manners. Now, we have to be appropriate in our response. Some people are receiving probation and they're being supervised. Others are being held in custody, and some are going to prison. We have to deal with this problem appropriately and not create an assembly line that goes to prison. But we also have to effectively handle this problem.
We have audience members here. We're going to go to an audience question now. Mia, you have a question?
Hi, my name is Mia. Thank you so much. Okay, great. I just want to make sure I have the right wording here. So I recently saw a statistic that that less than 10% of property damage, property crimes were cleared. So I want to know what law enforcement is doing to bring these people to account.
Lieutenant Perez with the Highway Patrol. Property damage or retail specifically, like retail crime? Property crimes. Yes. So I can tell you that all law enforcement agencies are actively involved in investigating property crimes. They're being proactive. They're actually being reactive as well. Law enforcement agencies such as the California Highway Patrol, Los Angeles Police Department, Sheriff's Department, and all the agencies throughout the state work collectively to continuously try to tackle that problem on a regular basis.
Tanish, you've been sitting there patiently, soaking it all in.
Yes.
What's your take so far?
I think this is a nuanced issue, right? Like just in sitting and listening to the conversation, I'm hearing challenges that the systems are experiencing and responding to it, and it's no surprise. It's no surprise because these issues, the root of the issues, and not just retail theft and smash and grabs, but just what we see happening in community overall. There are root causes that are being ignored when we only point to one system or only point to one approach in trying to deal with it. And I think what we're seeing right now is an exacerbation of that. A lot of systemic failures, a lot of broken approaches that are now playing out publicly, especially after the pandemic.
How can we be better at nuance? Because we, as a people, are not very good at nuance.
It's a hard time to be interested in nuance. It really is. People feel unsafe. You heard DA Spitzer. People's businesses are being directly impacted. Small businesses are shutting down. This is a really difficult time to think about nuance. It's also a difficult time to think about solutions that are not quick, one-off, or emotional.
I do want to say, and I want to commend the panelists because I did, my homework to find out a little bit about them, and you provided biographical background. They have all individually contributed to this conversation, and they've made us better in law enforcement and as prosecutors. Prosecutors have overreached for years We have put people in prison that shouldn't have gone to prison. We have not invested in rehabilitation programs and improvement in our community. But there's got to be a balance, and I think we're doing a much better job today as prosecutors in this modern era than in the past. However, while we're doing all those amazing things like recidivism reduction and mental health and veterans court and drug court, Prop 47 took away the incentive to get drug treatment by decriminalizing, by reducing possession of drugs from felonies to misdemeanors. It made it so that no one went to drug court or got help with their drug addiction. We know that drug court enrollment plummeted. And so I am working on an initiative in California to bring back the incentive to require drug users to get into treatment. And there will be consequences for not getting into treatment. So for example, everything is connected to smash and grabs: homelessness, drug addiction, and theft. Those three are the big pyramids, if you will, having to do with the societal issues we're facing today. We need to deal with each one of those pyramids.
So I'm glad you mentioned 47, and we want to bring it up because it's obviously a huge topic. For people who are listening and people who are here, just so we're all on the same page, let's get a definition out there of Prop 47, what it did, and then let's see if all of you agree on said definition, and then we can kind of take it.
Charis, why don't you?
Oh, okay, I'll start off. So Prop 47 was passed in 2014, the result of a ballot initiative that voters supported in California largely because our prisons were so overcrowded that we were in big trouble, frankly. And this was a reform following on AB 109 as a result of the Brown v. Plata case that said the state prisons are 33,000 individuals over incarcerated. So that's the history there in a nutshell. Prop 47 reclassified a number of low-level offenses involving drugs and property crime, thefts, larceny, that sort of thing, to misdemeanors, which typically come with a 1-year sentence to be served in jail rather than felonies as they had been treated prior, which would send folks to our state prisons for long periods of time at the tune of, back then, probably $75,000 to $80,000 per year per individual. So Prop 47 was a chance to reclassify these folks. It didn't mean that they didn't get arrested. It didn't mean that they wouldn't be charged with a crime. And it certainly didn't mean that they wouldn't serve time for the crime if found guilty. It simply said we're going to treat this as a misdemeanor rather than a felony and help our state prisons not be so overcrowded.
Is it doing what it was intended to do?
Absolutely not.
Wait, let her answer.
It is. It was intended.
We'll go.
It has.
Wait.
Yeah, and I'm going to turn
Charis,
it over
you.
to
Go ahead.
Nish in just a sec because
Is it working? Yes
it
or
is
no?
working. So if the goal of Prop 47 was to decarcerate our state prisons, that it did. Now, of course, the natural question becomes what impact did it have on crime? Every study I'm aware of to date, including by independent organizations like the Public Policy Institute of California and other organizations, have found that, in my own research as well, have found that it has had no impact on violent crime whatsoever and only very, very modest impacts on property crime for the crime of auto theft and larceny. So it is doing what it's intended to do. I think it has absolutely nothing to do with the smash and grabs that we're talking about. In the clip that we saw, they were charged with a federal crime. Mm-hmm. Prop 47 has nothing to do with federal. Rather than a misdemeanor.
Okay, so all right. Yeah. So now, Todd, it's your turn.
I'm literally holding the Public Policy Institute study that was conducted by Professor Lofstrom and Brandon Martin. And they absolutely, here's the title: Retail theft and robbery rates have risen across California, September 7th, 2023. Does anybody really feel that California is more safe? Do you know that homeless population has gone up 51%, while around the rest of the country it's gone down 11%? People do not feel safe today. People are concerned about their safety. And when we talk about the incarceration rate for individuals, are you going to tell that to the victims of the jewelry store after they pay their deductible and after they account for all their losses? And the insurance companies? Insurance companies aren't underwriting anymore in California. They don't want to do business in California because they're not going to tolerate the losses. So let us understand, homelessness has gone up, smash and grabs and robberies have gone up, Public Policy Institute of California, and Stanford University, and I have that study here too, has documented that homelessness has gone up. So when you add drug addiction, lack of treatment, theft, and homelessness, it is all somehow related. Many other factors, I grant you all that, but I will tell you The precursor was AB 109 in 2011 and Prop 47 in 2014.
For those of you just joining us, you're listening to KNX News Town Hall, special town hall. Smash and Grab is the name of the show, stealing the season. Mark, let me ask you something. I spoke with a store owner earlier today in Orange County, and he said that he had been the victim of not one, not two, but 3 attempts at what he interpreted to be smash and grabs. What was interesting, I thought, was he said in each one of those cases, law enforcement told him that when the people who were trying to break into his store were apprehended, they all came from LA County, and they all said that they came down to Orange County, this is what the store owner said, because they thought it was just easier to pull it off, even though they ended up getting arrested. Does that speak to what Todd was saying a little bit earlier in the show about the differences in philosophy about prosecuting between the two counties, LA and Orange County?
Well, the one thing I would say is, if it's so easy in LA County, why did they go to Orange County? But that's besides the point. What I will say is this. Organized retail theft, we can say there are a lot of reasons for it, and I know this is very simplistic. But the fact that you can walk into a bank with a mask over your face and wearing sunglasses and no one's going to bat an eyelash really changed the dynamic of organized retail theft. If I had done that in my 20s, and I'm almost 60 now, I would have been cuffed before I entered the bank. That's really changed the dichotomy right now.
Because of the pandemic.
Because of the pandemic. Right. So the surveillance video that retailers have established for the last 10 years, high quality, color, they've been able to identify people like that. Now with masks, and they're wearing these capering outfits in black sweats and black shoes and black socks and sunglasses and sometimes hoodies, it's hard to find them. And these are crews that are traveling all over the state and even outside the state. This is a national problem. This isn't an LA problem. It's not a Southern California problem. It's a national problem, whether it's Florida, Texas, or New York, or what have you. And when we talk about Prop 47, and we lowered the threshold for a minimum filing on theft. We have $950 in California. Below it's a misdemeanor, above it's a felony. 40 states, the minimum threshold is $1,000. Texas, a red state, is $2,500 in theft loss to have a felony, up to $30,000 in loss, and then it's a 2-year maximum top. And they're having ORT problems. So to say that we're soft, that's not the rationale.
But what you hear out there, there's 1,000 interviews, and they say, oh, if it's under 950, they're not going to go
every
after
single
him for the
day.
misdemeanor. They're not going to try
no
to, or they think they're going to walk out and just be like scot-free.
There's
and got away
no
with it.
serial theft. These individuals are committing petty theft at under 950 multiple times a day. Mark, we're not allowed to accumulate that dollar amount in the one day unless we can show that it was part of the same or similar act. So if they go to Target, then they go to Walmart, then they go some other store, we cannot charge that even if they accumulate thousands of dollars in one day. That is wrong. That's wrong, Mark.
But we can work under 490.1 of the Penal Code, the organized retail statute, and aggregate crimes, and we can also pull in juveniles on misdemeanors. So we are effective there. Now, is it worth it going after someone who's stealing a sandwich? That's a societal question. But that's expensive. And then to put them through the justice system and then incarcerate them, it's not effective.
Can I just
That's not a fair
chime in on this discussion? Because I think actually the point that you made is very telling about Prop 47's impact on all of this, which is that these are trends that are being experienced well outside of California. So it certainly is something larger and more macro that is common rather than Prop 47 because other states don't have it. The second thing is that Prop 47 was passed in 2014. We are seeing smash and grabs come on the scene in 2021. Why the 7-year lag? If Prop 47 is responsible for these crimes, there would not be a 7-year lag until it is felt in terms of crime impacts, let alone the fact that over the 7 years, we have had a pandemic and social unrest. We've had a weak economy, inflation, a variety of other confounders that make the link.
I actually want to hop in
I
here
want to
too.
answer that. You know what's happened? Chesa Bodine, San Francisco. Pamela Price, Alameda County. George Gascon, Los Angeles County. Those three DAs have literally plummeted public safety in California. Chesa got recalled as a DA by the San Franciscans.
I'm a
that
San
they couldn't
Franciscan,
put
and
up
I can
with it.
tell you, the new
By the way,
non-progressive DA
that's
has not
Denise.
helped.
Right?
Yeah.
Say again?
So yes, our DA in San Francisco got recalled, and our current DA is still having issues prosecuting. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
This has to be said.
All right, let's move on to a different but related topic. Lieutenant Sergio Perez, who again is the coordinator of the California Highway Patrol Southern Division Retail Theft Task Force. I spoke a couple of weeks ago to LAPD Chief Moore about this very issue, and he was saying that he thought that there was some evidence that some of these smash and grabs are very well organized and perhaps at a very high level because some of the merchandise finds its way on the internet and is sold at reduced prices. Has there been any evidence that you've seen, evidence that some of this is actually organized, and if so, at what level?
Yes, sir. We actually have. My team itself in the Los Angeles area has investigated teams that have actually gone out, traveled up through Northern California back to Southern California, and stolen product and merchandise from retailers, and come down here to Southern California and sold them to different areas that in turn.
But when people talk about organization, you think of things like the mob. That
How organized?
Yeah. How organized? Is it an organization with a structure? Is there a mastermind who is running all this? What do we mean by organized?
Well, the thing with that is that it varies across the board, right?
Okay.
Because it could be as simply as 2 or 3 people that are getting together and committing these crimes. And they could plan to go up to Northern California or go anywhere, and that's organized, right? There is an organization there. They have a plan in place, and they execute that plan and bring it back down. And what you guys see on TV when we're talking about the smash and grabs, because we don't classify everything as smash and grabs. You understand?
Yeah,
right?
let's separate this, right? There's shoplifting, and then there's shoplifting in a group of a couple people, and then there's the videos where there's 15 people running through a Nordstrom, smashing everything and running out, and you have to try and go after those in different ways. And you're probably not going to you can't be there every single time when someone runs out of a store with something. But what do you do about the things that people are scared about because they see the video and there's 12 guys in the Bloomingdale's?
Well, so what we do, obviously the law enforcement is constantly out there being proactive and working cases proactively where we have unmarked or officers not in uniform inside of stores and conducting investigations, trying to identify people coming in that way. Obviously, you never know exactly when they're going to show up, right? Unless you have some kind of information, some kind of tip, someone decided to speak with you and provide information to you. Absent that, it does get a little complicated to try to identify when these groups of people are going to target a specific location. So
Sheriff Cooper just did an operation last week in Sacramento.
That's Todd Spitzer, by the way, talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's all right.
Okay, didn't identify. Okay. But Sheriff Cooper, former member of the state legislature, now the sheriff of Sacramento County, which is, I think, the 3rd highest theft city in California, he just arrested over 300 people for going in and committing commercial theft. So he put undercover and uniform presence in the different malls and different shopping centers in Sacramento, and they caught over 300 people in the end.
You get them on the front end or you get them on the back end? Do you get them when they fence it, or can you be there at the mall all the time?
You cannot be at the mall all the time, but one of the things we're trying to do in this initiative that I've already explained a little bit is we need an enhancement for those who go in and do the smash and grabs in large groups. Now, you can file conspiracy. You can file a robbery if they're using force or violence, but we need an enhancement when they go in a group. And Mark talked about, from a prosecutorial point of view, when they're all covered up and they all look like pretty much the same in height and stature, it is very hard to differentiate A from B from C. These are difficult cases to resolve because they're in and out so fast and they tend to look almost identical. But when we do catch them, they should face serious punishment. And they don't today in California.
Charis, let me throw a word out. Sure. We hinted at it at the beginning of the show, which I acknowledge is potentially explosive, but I'll throw it out anyway. Agenda. Is this one of those things where everybody seems to have an agenda? Law enforcement has its agenda. We mentioned that in the beginning. We in the media have our own. They make good stories. The great television, pictures of people smashing windows and hauling off expensive items. Academics have an agenda.
My agenda is simply to bring the numbers to people and let them vote on propositions how they feel. I am here to conduct analyses, do studies. I think it's very important if we're going to implement criminal justice reform or any major policy that it is followed up with studies of data that speak to not just what is happening in one location or in one person's backyard, which is important, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but also that we supplement those individual stories and experiences with state-level data that can tell us what's happening from 35,000 feet.
Todd Spitzer, I mean, you have an agenda, don't you? I mean, you don't like George Gascon's philosophy and the way he conducts his office in LA County. So you have a political agenda, no?
Well, first of all, like I
No?
said, Orange County,
Yeah.
of course I have an agenda.
Right.
I'm elected to protect the public. I run a county, the third largest county in California, sixth largest in the country. LA's first. I'm sixth. And he filed 30 cases. I filed 1,200 in the last 5 years. I'm filing 300 a year. He's filing 30. When you come to Orange County, people understand we're going to take care of business. I'll work with the CHP, which we do successfully. I'll work with the feds. I'll work with whoever I need to put these people away as long as possible. Does it mean everybody should be in jail or prison? Of course not. But should repeat offenders? Absolutely. Did Prop 47, you heard it from the experts, it reduced our prison population. Who do you think is living off on our streets? 51% increase in homelessness. Who do you think's committing the smash and grabs? Who do you think's using the drugs and not going into rehab? It's all these people that should still be in prison that were let out early by the George Gascon types and the Governor Newsom types. That's why California is dangerous, and that's why we need to take it back. If this is the kind of community you all choose to live in, then vote for the people, not me. But if you believe that we should be protecting the public, then vote for people who have that like-mindedness.
All right, Mark, and then Shar.
Yeah, and by the way, Mark again is with the LA County DA's office.
Yeah, so we filed 30 cases in organized crime alone in the last 3 months. We file 7,000 cases as an office every month. We file more cases than anyone else in the nation, hands down, for the size of our county. We have over 700 prosecutors. What I will say is there are lots of ways to attack a problem. The problem is if we go after this like the drug war, we're going to have casualty after casualty in our communities. We need to have an effective response. And I've noticed, and I'm not stating this as fact, but I've noticed anecdotally that when we've brought people into the criminal justice system to be processed for ORT on the lower level, not the crews, not the violent crews like we saw in the montage, but on the lower level, they don't reoffend and they follow the court-approved programs. Now, there are exceptions to that, but once we have you in the system, we have a remedy.
All right, Sharis, our criminologist, Uzi Irvine.
Okay, can I
What do we
just
have
say-
numbers for? And then, Tanisha, I want to come to you after that.
I just want to, what was said just a moment ago about all of these different things that are happening and tying it right back to Prop 47. What's dangerous about that is that crime is caused by many different things. Homelessness is caused by many different things. And we have to do studies and evaluations. We can't just look at what crime is doing after a policy is enacted because that policy may or may not be responsible for that uptick. What's interesting about Prop 47 is that it only comes into discussion when crime is going up, not when it's going down. So what's strange to me is that we'll have crime going down. No one says, great job, Prop 47. But the minute it goes up, it surfaces again as a problem. So you can't have it both ways. If it's predicting crime, it has to predict it in both directions, in other words. My other thing is that at the end of the day, we need to do these studies and evaluations so that we are enacting policy that is not based on agendas, as you talked about, whether it's an agenda to be elected or an agenda to have certain kinds of policies in place, but rather what the science says. We don't go to doctors who don't look at medical studies to make decisions about how to treat patients. Those doctors, that's quackery. We shouldn't have correctional quackery.
Okay, we have another question from our audience, Lanesha, I believe. Hi, Lanesha.
Okay. Hi, thank you. Given that we know that we cannot arrest and prosecute our way to safety, prevention, right? What are some of the strategies you all suggest for preventing these things from happening in the first place?
How about keeping kids in school? I was a high school teacher about 10 miles here at Roosevelt High School at 4th and Soto. The dropout rate when I taught at Roosevelt High School was 50%. When Antonio Villaraigosa, the mayor, former mayor of Los Angeles, was running for governor, he held a press conference in front of Roosevelt High School to announce his candidacy, and the dropout rate was 50%. During the pandemic, the kids in LA Unified School District suffered immeasurably and are now 2 years behind. You don't think that they're more inclined to engage in criminality in the future because of poor choices that are being made about their education today? There is an absolute connection between education and success in society and making good choices. So these things are all interconnected. And just because I'm the DA doesn't mean I'm just concerned or have an agenda about law enforcement. It is my responsibility to work with everybody on this stage to hear what they have to say, take their input, and use their best advice whenever possible. They all have good ideas, but I will say this, it's not any one of our approaches. We need a collective approach to protect our community, education, opportunity, success, the cost of housing. Do you know what it costs to live in Los Angeles County? $2,500 for a one-bedroom apartment? People can't afford to live here. That's why they're stealing.
You're listening again to KNX News Town Hall, Smash and Grab, stealing the season. Tanisha, let me go back to something you said. I think you were mentioning before that in the Bay Area, San Francisco, that you didn't detect any difference with the change of district attorneys. And by the way, you're the executive director for the nonprofit advocacy group called Californians for Safety and Justice, right? Why do you think it didn't change, if in fact it hasn't?
Because the issue is deeper than just the leadership of that office. I mean, and going back to Prop 47, the intention behind this, in addition to reducing incarceration in the state, was also to tap into the $50 billion a year that go into just the criminal justice system in California, to move those funds to prevention so that our students can have after-school programming and job opportunities, so that we can interrupt folks from having to go to jail and prison just to get substance abuse treatment or mental health. 80% of the people that go into incarceration get access to mental health for the first time. Using jail and prison as a default to address an issue is the wrong approach. And so that overrepresentation and people walking around with over 40,000 legal restrictions to getting housing, employment, and supplementing their lives obviously feeds into the cycle of crime. This is a common sense issue, not a political one. So when we change these laws and we work on the implementation, our job is to scale up. Where are the beds to put people into treatment who are dealing and struggling with addiction? Where are the alternative programs? If our prosecutors and the folks who are in the system don't have enough options to prevent people from going into the system in the first place, what we get is the outcome that we have right now. This is a very nuanced issue. You can break down the different type of crime types and understand where they all show up differently. But the problem in San Francisco is no different than LA or anywhere else. And while the rates in Orange County may be different and your approach to prosecution may be different, none of us are safe right now until we have well-being in all of our communities.
So I have the Stanford study here, and in 1955...
And by the way, that's Tom Spitzer again. Todd Spitzer, sorry.
In 1955, we had 550,000 mental health beds in California. In 2014, we had 170,000 mental health beds. We don't have enough mental health beds. We don't have enough shelters. We are not taking care of the people who are underserved and at most at risk in our community. I'm completely committed to that. When I was a county supervisor, we built the first homeless shelter in Orange County in my district. That's how we cleared our riverbed and started treating the homeless with humanity. We need to treat our fellow men and women with humanity, but we have to have expectations in our community about behavior. When I drove up here from my county this afternoon, your streets are littered with mobile homes and tents. It's unacceptable to me. I grew up in LA. I grew up in Montebello. I can't believe what you are allowing to happen in your city. It is unacceptable. You shouldn't be accepting this. Today was a 1-year anniversary of Mayor Bass. She did more in 10 days to fix a freeway than she is doing to fix the homeless problem.
But Todd, isn't it because it's easier to fix the freeway than to fix the homeless
problem? No, because
problem?
you can hire contractors and professional engineers and put up a bunch of stilts under a freeway. But how did it happen in the first place? Because there was a homeless encampment there.
No, wait. There is zero evidence that anyone has produced thus far. And if you have it, Here's the opportunity to say what it is.
Clearly, they were told to get out of underneath the
But
freeway.
there's zero evidence, according to the police, according to the fire inspectors, that that fire with the tent had anything to do with anyone in the homeless camp. If you have evidence to the contrary,
I don't.
Okay, you don't.
All I'm
right.
saying is, I knew they were asked to clear out of that space, and they were allowed to remain there.
Have any of you seen anything new lately? Because whenever we get something like this that is all over the headlines, we get task forces, and everyone loves a task force, and we love a law enforcement task force, and then the senators get together and they have a committee hearing, and then we wait. And then with a lot of this, it's 6 months, and then it's a year, and there's a whole bunch of proposals, and there's a report, and then nothing. Has anyone seen something new lately that they've liked? And what was that thing?
All the things that impress me the most are community-based. They're community-driven. It's the community interventions to go and deal with the folks who are in the encampments. It is community folks who are opening residential treatment programs or trauma recovery centers. It are the community programs that are reaching out and creating job opportunities for folks who are coming back home and creating safe reentry for them. Those are the things that impress all of us the most because they are immediately responsive to the issue. I think a lot of what we are trying to do at the legislative and systemic level sound good, but it's the implementation that trips us up. And even with Prop 47, with all the best intentions, there are issues with implementation. The intention is to increase safety. Just like I think most of the intention here is to deal with the issues that we have in front of us and prevent them from happening again. But the approach that we use has to change.
Let's do some more distinction, because we did this before, between the high-level organized gangs that the lieutenant is definitely going after and shoplifting, which we all know about. There's an audience question about shoplifting that we have, I do believe.
Can I, while you're waiting for that, I just want to comment on what Tanish said real quick, and that's this point. We don't dialogue enough. This is my first time meeting her, but I know she's on the governor's group that's dealing with San Quentin and the changing of San Quentin. I know she's very, very involved in the community. This is my first interaction. I reached out to Mark's boss, George Gascon. He won't take a meeting with me. We have to understand and agree that we might have differences of opinion or philosophy about how we do our jobs in our community, but we should never not be talking to each other. And I can tell you, we don't do enough dialogue outside of our comfort zone, and we will never solve our community problems without increasing that. She is right. We need more community-based individuals, people who came out of prison, who are working with those who have just recently come out of prison to help them be successful. We'd be stupid not to work with prisoners that understand what happens when you get out of prison. We should be giving them stipends so that they're more successful in getting housing and other things immediately upon being released from prison or jail. We are not being smart about how we're doing with criminality, but do not tell me that I've got to give up on enforcement in order to engage in a dialogue to build more community-based support.
Well, I'm not sure
they're
anyone's
not,
saying you should
they're
give
not
up on
trade-offs.
It's balance.
Hold it for a second, because we do want to take that audience question on shoplifting. We found Scott. How you doing, Scott?
Hi, Charles Feldman. So when you were promoting this event on the radio, you featured a short interview with an expert who said that shoplifting hasn't spiked much, but it was based on...
Oh, this is a question for me.
It's for the whole panel.
Okay.
It hasn't spiked much based upon reporting, but isn't reporting a thoroughly unreliable statistic? Because anyone in Los Angeles has seen at a Rite Aid or a CVS, people walking in, getting a case of beer, walking out, and the clerk doesn't do anything. I actually interacted with a Rite Aid clerk on Sunset and Gower. I said, there's a guy walking out with a case of beer. She goes, we're not going to do anything. I said, you're not going to call the police? No, they won't come. So there's not a lot of reporting. So clearly there's a tremendous amount of shoplifting when Q-tips are under lock and key in Los Angeles and not under lock and key in Orange County. Clearly we have a problem of shoplifting, and there is the numbers aren't skewed anyway. They're just massive, but we just don't know the numbers because reporting is way down.
Why don't we let Lieutenant Perez, since you're the local police person here, do you think that is part of the problem, is an underreporting, and also that store owners just don't want to report shoplifting because they think the cops won't come?
Well, obviously, I can't speak for all the store owners, right? But I can tell you that
speak for the cops.
Yeah, well, we
Were you
do
calm?
respond. We do respond.
Okay.
Right, and I could tell you since the inception of our task force, the California Highway Patrol, just alone this year, we have 221 proactive investigations. We've responded to about over 2,100 actual retail theft investigations that we've completed. We've recovered over $33 million worth of product to give it back to the retailers. So we actually go out there. We do respond to some of these things. Retailers call us all the time. They reach out to us. We have a good relationship with the retailers and our ally agencies. And we are actively involved in investigating.
But
Can I
Lieutenant,
add something to that?
But Lieutenant, the governor employed, and I commend the governor for doing this with the CHP. But this gentleman's question is about the small fish, not the stuff that the CHP is focusing on. And the fact of the matter is this. You go into any of these stores today, look at what Home Depot has done with their end caps and these, they've wrapped them with these sensors. Do you know you can go on Amazon for $10 and buy the tool that removes the sensor from the tools that they have on their end caps? They are removing those tools. Do you know if you want to buy wire, you want to buy Romex to do an electrical job, it's under lock and key, and they put it in a box at the register because of the copper, because they resell the copper and fence the copper.
Yeah, the
and do you
fencing
know,
is an
and I'm not
issue.
done. And do you know that storekeepers cannot put their hands on individuals that steal? Because can you imagine when they steal your property and they trip and fall and break their knee because you try to apprehend them? They turn around and sue you and get $1 million. The people that steal are suing the shop owners, and that's why they're all being trained not to put their hands on. We have everything half-ass backwards in California, and it's got to stop. We are being crime pays in California. It's got to stop.
Okay, you're done now,
yeah,
Shara.
Thank you. So just to respond to the gentleman's question, so one thing that's really interesting is there is some issue with underreporting, but it's not as dramatic as everyone seems to think it is. But PPIC did a study of shoplifting in California. While commercial burglary is up, commercial robbery is up, and organized retail theft is a concern, shoplifting rates have been lower than they have been ever in the 12 years prior to the pandemic. This is PPIC. The Council on Criminal Justice, an independent, nonpartisan organization, just released a report, I don't know if that's the report you were referring to, that examined shoplifting trends in 24 U.S. cities and found that, and I want to get my numbers exactly correct because of misinformation, in the first half of 2023, 17 of the 24 cities in the United States reported decreases in shoplifting, including in San Francisco, of all cities, that has one of the worst reputations in terms of what's going on there. So I do think, this isn't to say that we can't be vigilant and we can't find solutions, but we also have to be very clear about what is happening and where it is happening, and that is why we need tailored, community-based responses, not overarching policies that ratchet up punishment as if one size fits all fits everything.
But Professor, you're missing the major point. How in the world does PPIC quantify these statistics when it's not reported? That's his point. People are no longer reporting. They don't want to get in law enforcement and be subpoenaed. They don't want to go to court and sit there all day and miss work for a $50 or $45 case of beer. His point is, none of this data, your data, any of the professors, all you academic people in your ivory tower, that this stuff is inaccurate because it's not being reported. You can't study something that isn't being reported.
Disparaging a profession does not make your point any more correct. The reality is that there's a lot of information in the study about how this is classified and reported. There is some questions about reporting not being perfect, but in fact, challenges of reporting have always been in existence. So if we're comparing over time, which is what they're doing, we can make those comparisons. Reporting of low-level shoplifting has perpetually been a challenge for law enforcement. This isn't anything new.
You're listening to KNX News Town Hall Smash and Grab, Stealing the Season, live here on KNX News. That was Sharis Kubrin, criminologist at UC Irvine. Tanish Hollins at Californians for Safety and Justice, ever patient today. You were nodding your head a couple times.
I'm letting the prosecutors and the criminologists duke it out. Y'all can have that.
Your thoughts, please, on this issue of things are happening and nobody's calling. And how do we know?
Well, I mean, so crime data is not great either. Law enforcement data is not great either, right? So we have an issue with data across the board. And then when we do look at the data that we have, we do see that, the tone, to your point, that folks feel in community about feeling unsafe, right, because of what they're seeing. That's a real thing, right? People do feel unsafe. Whether the data says that crime is down or up, or that crimes are not being solved historically 8-10 years in a row, which is also data that needs to be explored, right? So that's an important factor to name. But I do want to come back to the tone, because I think the tone that we're setting right now, even in some parts of this conversation, can be very dangerous.
How so?
Because we cannot rely just on law enforcement to instill values in our community. We have bigger issues here that we need to deal with. Now, when people commit crimes, there should be an accountability system that we're able to tap into. Right now, the system we have doesn't create enough options for us. It's very limited, and it's given us bad outcomes.
So what would you do differently?
What do we do?
Well, the first thing we have to do, to your point, D.A. Spitzer, is talk to each other. Because you've never called me, but it's nice to meet you. Okay? It's nice to meet you.
We're exchanging numbers after the show.
We're going to talk after this, right? But it does start with conversation. It also starts with talking to and engaging with the people who are most impacted by the issues. I think we make a lot of generalizations about who's doing what and why they're doing it. Again, nuanced. But not everyone who's homeless and on drugs is committing theft. Right? Not everyone who's committing theft has been to jail or prison. Like, there's a lot of nuances in this that we have to be mindful of. And so the solutions that we craft are going to have to be just as broad. They won't all take place in the criminal justice system. Some of those interventions can happen at the community level. I've heard everyone here supporting that. It makes everyone's jobs easier and prevents more harm from happening in our community. But it's not Pollyanna-ish. It's hard work. It's hard work, and it's challenging us to do it right now, and nobody wants to do that. It's not quick.
People love quick.
Decades and decades have been invested into building in a system that's broken right now.
But Todd Spitzer, I mean, your position seems to be that there's something unique about the situation in California that has led to a spike in smash and grabs and crime. But it is really all over the country. I do a lot of traveling, and you see stores all over the United States that have things locked up behind, plexiglass, and if you want to get razor blades, you have to call for a clerk. It's not just in California. So if California is doing something wrong, in your view, and maybe it is, then isn't the rest of the country doing it wrong too?
Why is homelessness up 51%?
No, answer my question.
It is happening all over the country, but to a more dramatic and impactful here in California.
So you're saying the matter of degree?
I think it's exponentially worse here in California than other parts, and it's documented in the Stanford study where homelessness is higher here than anywhere in the country, including blue states, led by Democrats.
But not everyone who's you're making it sound like everyone who's homeless is a criminal.
No,
I mean,
I'm
they're
saying,
not.
No, when I talked earlier in the show, I said homelessness, drug use, and theft are the big pyramids that need to be analyzed to deal with the issue of theft today. And I'm telling you, with the increase in homelessness, the fact that after Prop 47, there's no incentive to get into drug treatment. We have no hammer. Mark knows this. We used to have Penal Code Section 1000. If you had drugs possession for personal use and you went to drug treatment, the case was dismissed. It wasn't on your record. We know that drug court has plummeted as a result of Prop 47. Enrollment has gone down. Judges have nothing to hold over people's head because it's a misdemeanor, and a lot of these individuals don't mind having another misdemeanor, but we used to be able to get their attention. We don't. So these are all interrelated, and to Tanisha's point, it's going to be solved at the church level, at the school level, at the community activism level. Those are the people that have the most influence with the individuals that are either in the criminal justice system, coming out of our prisons and jails, or at risk to potentially go in. We need to invest in our after-school and intervention programs. We've got to save this next generation, which my point with LA Unified. If you're 2 years behind grade level with the biggest school district in the United States, what is the propensity for these young people to fail? In my opinion, it's still very high.
A couple of times, I think multiple people have said it, people out there don't feel safe. So what do we tell the people who are listening, watching, who don't feel safe? And that could be because, they were part of some break-in and their store was hit, or their car, or they've watched all these videos on the news and they think that maybe the organized big retail thefts are more prominent than they are. We know that something is happening, but I think we've all kind of gone back and forth about the extent of it. So what do we still say to those people about feeling safe if they don't?
As long as you live in Los Angeles, you're not going to feel safe. That's the fact of the matter. As long as George Gascon is the DA, you're not going to feel safe.
But Todd, wait a minute. You before were ticking off how many thousands of cases you filed. It doesn't sound like it's that safe if you have to file that many cases.
But you made the point to Mark, which is true. The people that we are arresting, that CHP is arresting and the other task force members for our smash and grabs at South Coast Plaza and other places, they're from Los Angeles. Hardly anybody in my county who lives there are committing these organized retail thefts in my county, right where the professor lives in Irvine. These people are coming down into our community from these communities.
Okay, I want to get a response from Mark Bayard. Yeah.
Okay, so first off, when you're a prosecutor, the hallmark is homicides. Homicides have decreased in LA County, and that is crucial. I was a prosecutor in mid-city in the 90s, and the homicide rate was going through the roof. And it spiked after COVID, and then it started dropping. And that's how I determine success of the DA's office, because at the end of the day, murders is what we have to protect the public from, number one. Number two, organized retail theft is a multifaceted problem. We cannot solve it here. We can make evidence-based decisions into our communities, and as prosecutors and law enforcement, we can go after the problem. Part of the solution is retailers. If you listen to the quarterly earnings calls from Best Buy, Costco, Lowe's Improvement Store, they've all said organized retail theft is not a problem. They have their goods marked. They have a lot of retail employees in the front. They have constricted entrances. This has dramatically reduced their, as they put it, shrink. If you go to high-end stores like Prada, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, they ask you to stand in a line outside. And I've spoken to these retailers, and they've told me the irony is the people who wait in line for 10 to 20 minutes buy more than the person who used to be able to just walk into the store. We are going to change, and I'm not saying it's right, but we are going to change the retail architecture, the way we run stores in the United States. And I don't want to mention a specific retailer, but I'll say Dollar General. They'll have one cashier on duty, no security guard, late at night, all alone. 23% of workplace deaths take place when an employee is alone. We need more people in the stores. Point out, by the way, we need security. Right. And we need better architecture, and that's part of the solution.
Yeah, and we've reached out to the California Retail Association and other retail groups, and they all declined to take part in the show. And a lot of store owners that we talked to, and we wanted to have them come on the show, they all said, or a lot of them said, that this is not something that they want to do because they have concerns and fears.
During the pandemic, do you all remember when next to Union Station, all the trains got looted that were sitting on the rail waiting to drop off their cargo? And George Gascon said they need more security and they need bigger padlocks on their containers. I was so offended by that statement. So basically now is the position of the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office that we have to take more responsibility for security. We have to hire security guards now. We have to get bigger padlocks. We need more employees when hourly wage is going up to $20 an hour. Are you going to price everybody out of the economy of California? This is ludicrous argument.
All right, Mark.
This is outrageous.
LA County DA's office, and because we're running out of time.
Okay,
Mark, because you were mentioned, your office was mentioned,
yes.
and then Shar.
And you know what? George was right. They did put better padlocks, tracking devices, they stacked. We had a task force from the CHP that came in, and we mitigated that problem dramatically with a task force and with best practices by the railroad carriers. It worked. Todd, it worked. You can put better locks on your house, you're going to prevent burglaries. If you can get more patrol cars on the street, it's going to prevent burglaries.
Mark, this is so typical of George Gascon. Blame everybody but the victim. What about the people that are just working hard every day, trying to get through their life, take their kids to school, pay their bills, and pay their taxes? You're blaming everybody but the person responsible, the perpetrator. My message is, you want to have a quality of life, move to Orange County.
Can I respond
Sure.
to your
Yeah, very
question,
quickly,
Rich?
though.
Which
Very
is
quickly.
what can be done. I think in terms of media reporting on this, I think it's really important to talk about some of the success stories and change the narrative a little bit, because right now it's all doom and gloom. And fair enough, we have problems that need responding to. I never want to minimize crime, but we just heard from Sergio about all the amazing things that are happening, task forces that are being created, as well as community-based programs that are making differences. It'd be nice to hear more about those successes and give a more balanced picture about what is working so that we can focus in that direction as well.
There is clearly a lot more that we can discuss, but we are going to have to leave it at that for now.
Thank you so much to our panel, to the team at Odyssey Los Angeles, our producer, Jonathan Service, the audience. Thank you for being here. Another KNX News Town Hall. For Charles, I'm Mike. Good night. Happy holidays.